Welcome back to Decleated, the football podcast. I'm your host, Seamus Digan, joined by our co-host, John Restrepo. And John, this weekend was a weekend filled with reunions. Saquon and the Giants playing, obviously they're a little bit more familiar than the other reunion that I'm foreshadowing with Rodgers playing the Packers. It's also a weekend filled with fun uniforms, the Eagles and Kelly Green, the Packers and the Steelers both in their fun uniforms, which I'm sure we'll talk about later.
Yeah, I
And
wouldn't call the
then
Steelers fun. I absolutely hated those jerseys, but yeah, those icy whites for the Packers have been like a staple in prime time recently, and they are so much better, so much better.
they shine when the lights are bright. They do. But this was also the first week in a while that the Packers and the Giants have not been in sync in the way that they played these football games. So it will at least get a little bit of diversity in our segments this week.
Yeah, I'm sure you're pretty relieved about that. Um, Not two teams that you want to be, you know, following the same trajectory. Yeah, I mean, just to jump into the Giants, obviously a tough game. The Cam Skattebo injury was, pretty much just took all the wind out of your sails. And as a fan, when you lose Malik Neighbors already early into the season, and we're already razor thin in terms of offensive firepower and playmaking ability, to lose your rookie star running back who has been basically carrying this team to, not solely obviously, but like carrying play defenders, carrying this offensive line, and just like carrying this run game for the Giants and giving it another element that it hadn't had in previous years. He's been able to really hit it between the tackles and add that, physicality and the, just tenacity and like angry running and tough physical football that, we were starting to kind of build this identity of, at least on the offensive side. And, to see him go down, especially for being such a young player too, it really stinks.
And it stinks with a guy like that too, right? Because even if that doesn't become your whole identity offensively, right? Like all 11 guys don't adopt that, it's still a tone setter. Like it's a similar phenomenon with Tucker Kraft. Like I don't think our offense's identity is like smash mouth in your face, like super intense, a little psychotic. But the fact that we have a guy like that definitely like raises the tone a little bit. So, he is
Yeah.
a tone center, and like you were kind of getting at too, like it would be nice to have that 1-2 punch of Tyrone Tracy and Scattaboo and like a little bit of diversity in the backfield, and obviously that was taken away pretty quickly.
Yeah, it stinks. 'Cause I was really excited to see the two of them, especially a healthy Tracy. Now a couple weeks removed from his injury, coming back and working his way into the mix, and then being able to kind of complement each other with the passing game upside of both players too, and then more of the zone one cut running style of a Tracy versus just a power running downhill runner like Scatabo. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. You can't really predict these injuries, and the unfortunate thing is when we talk about just the misfortunes the Giants have had over the years in terms of injuries and stuff. There's really nothing tangible you can really put it on. You could blame the MetLife turf all you want, but we were not in MetLife Stadium. This is not the first injury that we've seen of a Giants player, significant like this in other stadiums too. It is just completely random, but it just tends to happen to this team, or it feels like at least that it happens to this team more than others. And again, there's nothing tangible. There's no crazy statistic that you could be like, oh well, this is why all these guys are getting hurt, and this is. It is something supernatural. It is something in the air, in the mist. Very on par with the Halloween coming up this week too. There's some supernatural force that is driving it. Some bad omen, some curse on this franchise, and unfortunately, we haven't been able to shake it yet. It is not lifted from us yet, and I'm just counting down the days for us to just not have to witness these terrible injuries to our, not just like random people on our team, which obviously I don't want to wish injury on anyone on our team, but the fact that it just happens to our best players, our star players, just makes it so much more demoralizing. So it's just so, again, there's really nothing you can say. There's really nothing you can be like, well, this is the reason why, and like it's just, it sucks, and it's just, you kind of have to sit here and take it.
Yeah, it does suck, and I think that's the other thing too, that we've talked a lot the last couple weeks about perspective, right? The differences between the Giants and the Packers and where they are, and I think part of why it feels like why it feels the way that it does for the Giants right now with an injury like this is because you have so few difference makers on the team when you're in the position that the Giants are in, that if one of those or multiple of those gets taken away in a season, right, it's demoralizing. It's like all of the wind is taken out of your sails. Versus if that happens to, one of the upper echelon teams, it's, well, maybe they didn't reach their goals because of this injury, but they were still a good team. They had enough to compensate, right? And so like the disdain, right, and this disheartening feeling that you get feels different, right? As a Giant fan, it feels like they're piling on. Everything is going against us, right? Like the gods are against us, whatever you want to say. Versus, again,
Yeah.
if this happens to whatever, let's say the Colts, right now, they're the best team in the NFL. If Jonathan Taylor goes down, it's, oh my God, this was going to be the season, right? This was, the one that to turn the franchise around, and now this one thing happened where, like, they might still end up being a playoff team if Jonathan Taylor goes down. Who knows? But it's just about the perspective of it. Like, it could,
Yeah, for sure.
for argument's sake, it happens the same frequency for everybody, or over time. But it's just one of those things that, like, when you're already so limited, and those few bright spots get taken away, that's when it's
especially when you're and to your point, just trying to climb out of the state that we've been in, like get in and reach those new heights, and finally break this cycle of bad football, and just year after year, the 2-6 starts, the 1-7 starts. It's been the same thing year in and year out for the last 8 years, minus the one playoff year. So it's just, we're in that state again, and it's just really unfortunate. I will say the main difference, and again, Skattebo when he was healthy, and obviously the other rookie and Jackson Dart have been the main driver of this. But the one thing that I could say more so, and again, I hate doing these moral victories, but more so than prior years, is just the level of competitiveness just feels, a little better for this Giants team. And I'm curious to get your thoughts too, because I struggle so back and forth. At some point this season, I have talked my shit or pointed my finger at pretty much everyone in the organization for the Giants at some point. And I kind of really went after Brian Daboll in the last episode. And I just want to get your thoughts, because I myself am very unsure about Brian Daboll in general, like going forward this year. Obviously, he has a rookie quarterback. He seemingly has his guy, and in the world, in the realm of quarterback development, is doing a very good job with Jackson Dart, which I am very happy about. It just seems like everything else is an issue. Again, what he's doing with I guess the combination of himself and Jackson Dart are able to do with the offensive pieces that are around them right now is honestly pretty remarkable. But again, the staff I worry about. The defense is a huge issue. And, just a lot of like fundamental mistakes and errors. And, I don't know if that just comes with a naturally young team, but I'm curious to get your thoughts as to, do you think that, again, this team, I don't imagine they're going to win a ton more games this season because of Jackson Dart. Do you keep Brian Daboll regardless of the outcome of this season? If they keep playing, maybe not winning all these games, but playing competitive football like they've been, and, just keep him for the sake of Jackson Dart, because they seemingly have found their guy to be the franchise quarterback.
Yeah, I guess that's a tough decision, right? Like, we went back and forth even at the end of last year, right? Like, do you get rid of one or both of him and Shane? Do you get rid of, both at the same time, or neither? And, it feels like the Shane conversation has sort of gone away a little bit at this point. I think he's done enough, right, with this rookie class especially, to say, and the free agent class too, right? Like Paulson Adebo and some of the other guys that were brought in to kind of like bolster the roster, I think have made some impacts. So I think that's why that conversation has gone away. But I think it's still a similar situation. Like I don't think Shane's done such a good job where you fire Daboll and then leave him in place. But I don't
No,
know that.
no, not
But I
at
also
all.
don't know that this organization's at such a bad place where they both need to go. Especially like they have a tough schedule this year. They going into the season, regardless of who was playing quarterback, they had one of the tougher schedules in the league, which we knew.
Hmm.
They play in one of the better, more competitive divisions in football, especially if the Cowboys start to click here. If you see real progress from Jackson Dart at the end of the year, even if the record isn't super reflective, and to your point, this team is playing hard for him through week 18 in these games that they may not be in, right? All for all 4 quarters. Like, I think that's a
Hmm.
real positive sign. Again,
I think
I'm
so.
with you. I struggle with the
Yeah.
moral victories, but like, I don't know that you necessarily need to have the absolute perfect quarterback, head coach. You know what I mean? Like, this doesn't have to be
Hmm.
Belichick and Brady or Andy Reid and Mahomes, right? Like, they can both be good enough, at least for now, to say,
Yeah.
okay, you got your guy. We gave you a chance. Throw last year away going into next year. Let's have a good offseason and go into next year and then see how it goes.
Yeah, again, and I wanted to bring this up because again, I was like super super critical of Brian Dable, and will continue to be because some of his decisions drive me crazy,
Right.
and the whole lack of taking kicker seriously is a whole nother thing too, which like I cannot stand with Brian Dable, but I think that again, to your point, just based on everything, it's a tough schedule. He said he wanted to get his guy and build this offense, and this is the best offense we've seen from the New York Giants in a very long time. I mean, you know, you have to look at it in a vacuum because you could go look at Daniel Jones and look at the Saquon Barkleys of the world and kick yourself because you're watching all these other guys leave and have more success than they did on your team. But you cannot play that game, unfortunately. It's just it wasn't a fit for his offense. Daniel Jones clearly, when he is around a talented team, can perform and can play so like fantastic. We are seeing him play, I mean, better than anyone could have ever imagined. He was not elevating the talent around him in New York, and again, whether it's just because of too many offensive coordinators, confidence broken, whatever. We don't have to go down this whole rabbit hole, but I just think that based on what we've seen from Jackson Dart, I think already in the first couple games, the growth in his reading of defenses and making throws downfield and keeping plays alive, but not just looking to scramble, keeping his eyes downfield, and all these traits that I didn't see it the first game, didn't see it the second game too much, but just has slowly been building and building and building. And it's a shame we don't have more wins to show for it, but he's been taking care of the football for the most part outside of mainly the Saints game. And again, he's been giving this Giants offense a great fighting chance, or the Giants team a great chance by leading this offense. So, I'm really thrilled with how Dart is playing, and I think because of that, you're kind of, again, I don't want to say backed into a corner. I mean, that's kind of how it feels. Like you kind of have to keep Dable. But again, I want to be optimistic. I want Dable to be better as well. And I don't want it to be an excuse of, oh, well, this team is just so young and so whatever. I'm like, that. I get it. But we got to have some discipline too. Hopefully that's the mantra next year is we're just trying to assemble talent and get our swagger and, whatever. Now let's clean everything up. Let's button everything up and, be a competitive football team and be able to close out those games that I don't want to just play in games that are entertaining. I want to win those games too. So, I think that's got to be the mindset going forward. But yeah, I was curious to see, and I feel like we're kind of on the same page with that. But yeah, I mean, outside of that, I really didn't have much else to say. To be honest, I didn't watch much of the second half of this game. I was pretty much demoralized after the after the Skattebo injury, and once we get into halftime, I kind of just tuned it out. But the only thing I can take away from this game is that the refs were absolutely terrible. I'm not going to go on a whole complaint fest and whatever, but I mean, you can't have a phantom forward progress stop on a tush push, just because you reach the ball out in the middle of the field, not on the goal line. That was awful. The PI on Darius Slayton was terrible, and there were just so many like false start. I mean, I guess they did call some false starts for the Eagles, but just a bunch of just awful calls. And again, I'm not going to throw a pity party for myself and for the rest of the Giants fans, but it just sucks because at least it could have been a little more competitive than it was if that Slayton touchdown doesn't get called back. But what are you going to do? I didn't have high hopes for this game anyway.
Yeah, as a quick aside on the officiating too, like I hope if this one wasn't the straw that broke the camel's back, I hope we have more plays like this throughout the rest of the season on the tush push where we get to the point where the camel's back is broken, because I'm sick of it. I want it out of the game. I don't care for it. I don't think it's a fun play. You want a QB sneak, that's fine. But we should not be doing this play for 4 yards or 4 plays consecutively. Like, it's just ridiculous. And again, I think I could be convinced of the argument to keep it as long as it's officiated properly. The problem is it's just not officiated properly anytime. The offense is consistently offside. They're starting early, and we're ruling forward progress was stopped before the whistle is blown. Like, I don't understand when we're saying on the broadcast, and look, credit to Kevin Burkhardt and Tom Brady, right? Like, for trying to be as impartial as they were. I think they did a good job
calling
with that
it
whole
out.
sequence.
Yeah, they were calling it how they saw it.
The speculation from Dean Blandino was, hey, or whoever, I don't even remember, Pereira, whoever it
Yeah.
was, oh, well, you can't hear the whistle on the replay. You can hear the whistle clear as day.
Yes, you can.
Like,
and
now,
they
maybe
did
that's a
not
Fox
blow it.
thing.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
it's
don't
a
know.
Fox thing. Like, I don't know if the officials don't have sound on the field. If they don't, again, go back to my rant from last year about the officiating. That's bullshit. There's no reason that TV has something the officials don't. But again, I just don't like if forward progress is stopped below the whistle. Like that, you know what I mean? Like these officiating critiques that I have that are related to the tush push are being amplified by the tush push, but they are not directly tush push related. These are
No,
calling it
100%.
how you see it. These guys are lining up off sides when they run the tush push. We're calling forward progress to stop before the whistle is blown. Like, if you just officiate to the rule book, we would be fine.
Yeah, I 100% agree with what you're saying, and it's just both of the times that the Giants have played the Eagles, I feel like have been the biggest like anti tush push agendas, or at least on the national stage, it's finally getting brought up. And so who knows? Maybe they will vote on it again this offseason. I imagine that they will. Unfortunately, until the end of this season at least, we're still gonna have to deal with it. So, and they're still gonna use it as much as they please. So.
They should. And you know what? The NFL owners have nobody to blame but themselves, because they had Mark Murphy as a scapegoat last year. The Packers said that they should ban the tush push last year because he was on his way out and he had nothing to lose.
Yeah, and they threw him as the poster child to get it removed. Yep.
Yep. And then it didn't pass. So, I mean, it's on everybody else. We did our part. We did our 132nd.
And you know what? A quick, I'm going to throw a little college in here too while we're talking about the officiating. You know, one thing that I absolutely love, if you watch any ACC game, is how they go inside, like they have the refs mic'd up, they go back to the studio, that you hear the conversation of when they're reviewing a play, when a challenge is made, of the conversation between the studio who's, looking at all these angles and flipping to these angles and showing the refs on the screen what they're seeing. And it's a really cool insight to everything. And I know the NFL will never do it because God knows any of those, is this rigged? Is this whatever? Well, that could get exposed real quick if they did something like that. But I think it's fantastic for the game, for those games, and I really wish that it would be implemented in the NFL, because being able to, really hear the logic behind all these calls, and I don't think this would have helped the Giants per se, because I guess forward progress was called, so you can't review it anyway, which again was horseshit. But I just think something like that would be a real way to start keeping officiating a little more honest in the NFL, especially in a day and age where it feels like everyone's got an agenda and like there's no consistency with the officiating across the league. So I feel like that would be a nice way to do it. I just can never imagine the NFL implementing something like that.
Yeah, a little XFL style. I love it too.
Yeah, they're just
the other thing too. For a guy like you,
no
who spends most of or half of his football season watching games in person, you don't have Dean Blandino or Mike Pereira or Terry McAuley in the stadium explaining to you what happened. And unless the referee goes out of his way to give a detailed explanation, which most of the time they don't, you're really in the
Yeah.
dark in the stadium. Now, again, we just criticized the officiating crew in Philadelphia this week. The one thing I did appreciate, I didn't like the explanation, the content of the explanation, but after that play, and he explained on TV, well, we explained to New York that they're not able to challenge this because of this. However, they've decided they want to challenge this element of the play. Therefore, we'll go look at the play. So I did appreciate that like lengthy explanation, but
Yeah.
again, the content of the explanation I didn't like.
Yeah, I'm with you there. We've heard a couple spurts too. Wasn't that in the Packers Steelers game where they had they made a comment about who the aggressor was when they were throwing an unsportsmanlike conduct or one of those penalties?
Yeah, they did. 51 on the Steelers. He was the quote unquote instigator, which I
That
really
was
liked
it, the instigator.
on TV, it looked like Javon Bullard was the guy who was going to get flagged.
I said that. I
Sure.
was yeah.
But, once he said instigator, NBC went back and showed kind of the beginning of the clip. And you're, oh my God, he just blatantly tabletopped him for no reason.
So
I like that
not
too.
all
You're
bad, but some little notes to take of other officiating observations. But anyway, I think we might as well. I didn't really have much else to say about the Giants. I say we just jump in. We were actually able to watch Sunday Night Football together, which was fun. I think we got to talk about a huge win for the Packers against their ex, soon-to-be Hall of Fame quarterback.
Yes, we did, and it was a fun time. We were out at a Packers bar that's local to us. Only my second time there, but we're 2-0 in my 2 appearances, so maybe we'll have to keep it up.
There you go.
And
they had great
I will
wings
say-
too, so I'm definitely down to go back there.
They did. They were outrageous. Some like 140 flavors or something, and we
was
sampled
wild.
8, so we did our part.
Shout out Blue 42.
Maybe part of this is the fact that we watched it at a bar, and I always qualify my opinions when I'm watching at a bar or in person that like you never really watch it as closely as you do when you're watching it on TV. But it just didn't quite feel as weird as I thought it was going to watching Rodgers play for another team. I don't know if it's because, it's his second team and it's not like his first year away from Green Bay, or if it's because I've watched so many Steeler games with him and now I'm kind of used to a little bit, or because he just, he doesn't feel like the same old guy anymore. He's got a new helmet, it's
Different
a new
number.
uniform. They had those ugly ass yellow uniforms on, and maybe I'm just desensitized.
I think it's and you're a little removed too. Like you said, he did have a team in between.
It really felt like it just didn't feel as unnatural as I thought it would. It felt very normal. Like I think if we had played the Jets the first year, it would have felt very much like, a part of me was like missing. Like I think it would have felt a little heartbreaking. But now it was more like no, like Jordan Love and like this is us. Like
the guy,
the
baby.
like we're good. Like I felt like in a relationship, like in the beginning, like you feel bad, like if you see him in person, is it going to be awkward, like who moved on first, you don't really know, but like now I'm so secure in what I have that like I'm rooting for you, like good for you, I want you to do well, but like I don't really care.
That's awesome.
I feel a little Colin-esque.
What an analogy.
But it's true. I'm rooting for him. Every other game this year I'll be pulling for him. He played pretty well against us. But it didn't feel as unnatural, and I was very, very happy to see Jordan Love absolutely ball out on national television.
Yeah, it was a slow start though, but they really turned it on in the second half.
They did turn it on. And before I get into the meat and potatoes of what I want to talk about, I did just see a stat before we hopped on that I believe Jordan Love is now the highest rated quarterback in Sunday Night Football history. He has the highest quarterback rating on Sunday Night Football games.
Well, I don't want to steal any of your thunder. I don't know where you're going, but I had said when we were watching the game that, and we kind of alluded to it too when they have those icy whites in primetime. They just like have that. They have the swagger and the aura that you're looking for. I mean, they look the part, and I was going more on the wave of my favorite Packer, Tucker Kraft. The dude just always finds a way to turn it on in prime time. Like I don't know if it was early in the year against Washington, it might have been on like Thursday night, but he popped off then. And then, I mean, for National Tight Ends Day, this guy had a Jamar Chase stat line Unbelievable play. That one jump ball pass where he just leapt up. Jordan Love just threw a prayer, leaps up, and then runs for another like 40 yards. That was so electric. And he is just such a dog. He and you even compared him to Cam Skattebo. A very similar type of player. Both lunatics, both big, rumbling guys. And if that is the tight end version of Cam Skattebo, and Cam Skattebo is a running back version of Tucker Kraft. I absolutely love that comparison before.
It's guys that are so easy to love. You're right, like lunatic in the best way. Guys who would die on the field for their teammates. Like when you're headbutting Jordan Morgan on the sideline with no helmet on, and he has a helmet on, like there's a screw loose somewhere. But again,
That was
it's
crazy.
all in the best way.
Yep.
But you're right, and the white uniform too. It's kind of nice. I'm glad that they didn't introduce that. Obviously, they didn't have the opportunity because of the helmet rule. But I'm glad they didn't introduce that until the Love era, because I think that's part of this. Like,
It feels very like him. Yeah.
There's an era shift, right? Like this team has been the youngest team in football. Like they've got a little bit of the swag and the aura, right? Like they're a little bit more of the, you don't really want to be this as a football team, but a little bit prettier. You know what I mean? Like it just feels a little bit more like apt that they're the ones that have these all white unis versus like if it was like Rodgers and Devontae, be like, there's these old guys kind of in these new uniforms, and I think it would have felt like mismatched. This feels very gelled. It feels like a very good fit. I wasn't going to go crazy on Tucker Kraft or Jordan Love for that matter, because I feel like the national discourse today and tomorrow and the beginning part of this week as we debrief Sunday Night Football is going to be related to those two for the most part, who obviously deserve all the credit they're going to get. Great game from both of them. Tucker Kraft led the NFL in receiving yesterday. All positions, all games. Like, so you're right, Jamar Chase type stat line.
It's crazy.
7 catches,
like
143, 2 touchdowns. Like
2 touchdowns too. It's crazy.
Poor guy got a $5 trophy though because the WrestleMania style National Tight End Day belts that they ordered didn't come in on time. So,
oh my god,
Mike Tirico made a nice little joke. I almost missed it, but he was like, "I bet if we played on Thursday night, it would have gotten here on time because it's done by Amazon."
That's
whatever.
Sucks.
Anyway, had to give him a little shout out. It was a nice little joke.
Yeah.
Anywho, the first part of what I really wanted to say today is I just want to pat myself on the back, to be honest with you, because if you've been listening to the last 2 or 3 episodes of Decleated, there's a couple things that I've been absolutely pounding the table for, and we did most of them, and it worked out. So I'm just going to give myself some credit here for the next couple of minutes, and I'm just going to jump into it.
The floor is yours.
The first thing, and this is the least give myself credit of all of the things, because this was more of a prediction than there was nothing they could do about this. But I told you, when Christian Watson came back, this offense was going to look different. I said it 2 weeks ago, and I said it a lot last week because I knew that there was a real chance he would come back this week. I knew this offense would look different when he was on the field, and it instantly did. Instantly. Now, again, they were still a little slow in the first half, but he had the first completion of the game already, getting the ball in his hands. And what do you know? It was a medium length completion that got the didn't move the change, but it gets the team moving a little bit.
Yeah, keep you ahead of the sticks.
Correct. Thank you. That's the term I'm looking for. Kept us ahead of the sticks at the time, at least, before we could get behind the sticks eventually. But he had 4 catches for 85 yards. Obviously, the big bomb near the end zone is the one that catches everybody's eye. But he had another out route along the sideline in the second half too. That was a critical play to keep a drive going. Little things. And again, I think as he A, gets on the field more, he didn't play every snap, and B, gets back into the rhythm a little bit with Jordan Love, right? They've got to get back into the flow, get their connection right again. Once that happens, though, I think he becomes the second or maybe 1A, 1B go-to guy with Romeo Doubs in terms of the guys in that receiver room. Because there was even that one play on, I believe it was a third down, where Matthew Golden and Christian Watson are lined up on the right side of Jordan Love, and Romeo Doubs is up on the top. And he just runs a fade, and Jordan Love kind of throws it up to him. I thought there could have been PI, and Romeo honestly probably had a chance to catch it and didn't. And we even said in the bar, he's got Matthew Golden and Christian Watson on the other side of the field. It didn't even look that way.
It felt like a route that should have been ran, or maybe it was ran, but just wasn't thrown that direction by one of those two guys, because it's Dobbs shouldn't be, jumping up, making these, contested catches. You think it's a Watson or, one of these guys jumping up to make the catch.
Yeah, so And truthfully, I think that's just a product of Romeo is my go-to guy. It's third and long. I need to play. I'm going to Romeo because he's the guy that I trust the most, and he's just gonna like I'm gonna give him a chance and just let him do with that what he will. I think Christian Watson gets to that point, and I think we saw that a little bit at the end of the game with that post, right? That everybody went, oh God, that's gonna be a pick, but it ended up being a great throw right over the safety's hands and into Christian Watson's lap. I think we'll get there with him. I think it's just gonna take a game or two. But I'm telling you can already see the difference. And the blocking. The amount of critical blocks he had on Tucker Kraft flats and Savion Williams jet sweeps and Josh Jacobs and Emmanuel Wilson being able to bounce runs outside. Like, he is making an impact from the moment he set foot on the field, which is all I could have asked for.
Yeah.
And as a side note, too, Jaden Reed showed up at practice for the first time since he was injured last week. So if he can come back in December, let's say, I don't know, like, whatever that is, if you get Jaden Reed back in this offense, again, it's almost like, this offense has been so good, comparatively speaking. They haven't been consistent, but the top end, they've been very good this year, and it hasn't been fully healthy yet.
I was going to say, you still haven't hit your peak yet.
If you can get all these guys back, like, it's very exciting.
Yeah.
The other thing that I pounded the table for last week was the short passing game, short to intermediate passing game, because the two things that I didn't like that we were doing, and I think they were directly related, was we're throwing a lot of screens and a lot of backwards behind the line of scrimmage passes against Arizona, against a secondary that I frankly don't think you need to do that against. And again, when those are unsuccessful, it's leading to second and third and long, which is, again, just staying behind the sticks, versus what they did in the second half this week, where you're taking 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yards at a clip. Oh, you throw 2 5-yard passes, all of a sudden it's a first down. You don't even have to worry about third down. What a novel idea, right? Mm-hmm. Or you throw a 5-yard pass, and then you get a 4-yard run, and now it's 3rd and 1, as opposed to 3rd and 9. Like, so that's the slight change. I don't think it's a huge change, right? Like, I'm still talking about the short pass game, but the difference between throwing the ball 1 yard behind the line of scrimmage and then a wide receiver missing a block and then you get tackled and now you're behind the sticks, to everybody run hitches and pick a side and somebody's going to be open and get 4. Like, it makes a world of difference. And it was so evident when this team is playing ahead of the sticks how much better and more efficient they are.
And we really saw the duality of that in this game, too, because I had even said in the first half, I'm like, this looks very much like it's either a 50-yard bomb or it's a screen or it's a run up the middle for 2 yards or like that. And to your point, in the second half, it was a lot more mixed. They still did a lot of screens, but it was really the intermediate passing that really kind of opened everything up, because then you sneak in a screen here or there. You sneak a guy downfield, and then it's just kind of like you have to cover every blade of grass on the field, which obviously you can't do. And that's kind of when the Packers really started taking over. And that's when the run game started opening up too, because then 23 had holes left and right to run through and just started really getting the run game going. Which then they were unstoppable. Yeah,
it was complimentary football at its best.
Yep.
Right? It's like the chicken and the egg. You have a couple successful runs and a couple successful passes. Well, they're both opening up lanes for each other. It doesn't matter the run is leading to the pass or the pass is leading to the run. If you are very successful at one, it's going to leave the defense susceptible to the other because they're going to try to stop. So again, that's why it's critical for us to stay balanced, right, and never give up on the run, and like we have before. And not totally get away from the deep passes or the screen passes or the intermediate routes. Like, it's important to stay balanced. And ultimately they just executed on the plays that were called, which is obviously the biggest piece of that. And then the last little thing that I'll pat myself on the back for, which is like, just thank God, is Carrington Valentine played almost every defensive snap. Which, again, last week I almost blew a gasket because I was just so pissed off at Nate Hobbs and the
you kept saying it too. You kept saying it during the game too. You're like, I'm so happy that Nate Hobbs is not covering DK Metcalf right now.
And you know what? Every single time that a corner made a play, it was, who's that? Oh, it's 24. Oh, it's 24 again. Oh, it's 24. Oh, that's Carrington Valentine. Oh, yeah. Like, the guy just makes plays. And he did it against Jamar Chase 2 weeks ago, too. Like, it's not like, and guess what? He did it last year, too. Like, when Jair and Keyshawn were battling injuries and stuff, and the guy came in and played, he just played well. He's a young player. He's going to make mistakes. That's fine. But I don't understand why we're, like, throwing our young receivers into the fire a little bit and letting them play and make mistakes because we don't have any other choice. Why are we not doing the same thing with the cornerback position? I understand you just gave Nate Hobb $45 million this offseason, and you may be a little bit more inclined to give him the benefit of the doubt, all things equal. But we're at the point where all things are not equal.
You can't do that.
And so I'm glad that the coaching staff has realized that. And you know what? Matt LaFleur said today in his presser that the cornerback position is open for the taking, including Keyshawn Nixon. So everybody in that cornerback room is on alert now. Like, you are not safe. You better play or, your job is going to be open. I don't know that they make any trades this year at the deadline. They typically don't, right? Like, it's not a team that makes any big moves like that.
They got their one big trade out of the way early, so...
Yeah.
Their one big trade in the last decade over with in the beginning of this year.
I don't foresee that happening. But if it did, I think cornerback depth is one of those areas that, like, apparently Goody has been making calls just to see what's
You want Deonte Banks?
No, thank you. We have Bo Melton at home, actually, and he's a converted wide receiver who I'd rather play corner than him, I think.
You'd rather play me at corner. But anyway.
Like, for argument's sake, I heard a rumor that apparently they had called Cincinnati about Turner. I forget his first name, the cornerback Turner, who played
he's
phenomenally against the Packers and has been playing lights out like the last handful of games. He played great on Thursday Night Football last week against the Steelers, too. He's been all over the place. I mean, if you can get him for a day 3 pick, do it. But, otherwise I could see them making a Rasul Douglas-esque signing in the next coming weeks, right? Like somebody off a practice squad or somebody gets waived around the trade deadline. I could see them bringing in a corner to kind of just compete in the room, but I don't really see them making any splash moves there. Another thing, again, ask me if you've heard this before. Special teams was a question mark this week. I mean, there were a couple... again, we have Romeo Doubs returning punts, which I am still skeptical of, but at least he caught them all, right? And so and Savion Williams did a good job returning kicks, again, protecting the football. Neither of them looked great doing it after they secured the football for different reasons. Romeo Doubs looked like his controller died every time he caught a punt.
That sounds so bare minimum. Yeah, at least they caught the ball.
Right, which, again, I literally said this to you yesterday while we were watching the game. It's like, that's all I care about. The whole point of a kick or a punt return is to get possession for the offense. Just do that. I don't care. I don't need... You're not going to take it back anyway. So, like, just make sure you don't give them the football back is really all I care. And don't, like, totally fuck us. You know what I mean? Like, just take the ball in the 20. That's fine. The offense will overcome the extra 15 yards that maybe they could have gotten. Like, it's fine.
Not a big punt return touchdown guy, but...
I just don't have a lot of faith. We haven't seen a lot of it in Green Bay. So
it's fair.
It's a lot of risk for not a lot of reward, I'll say that. But again, when you have Romeo Doubs looking like he forgot whether or not he fair caught the ball after he clearly didn't fair catch the ball, no wonder he's not a punt returner. And then Savion Williams, like, he's supposed to be this gadget Cordell Patterson kind of guy, and I like him offensively, but kick returning, he just doesn't feel like he has a burst to be the kick returner. Like, kick return is like you spend the first 5 to 7 yards like kind of navigating, right? Like you take the ball to the end zone, you're surveying the lay of the land, right? You're eyeballing it, and after that you go. Once you make your decision,
you gotta find what looks like the biggest hole in the coverage and just hit it. Yeah,
and he like didn't really do that, which again, like he got back to the 20 more or less, a little bit back to the 30. Like he did a fine job. It's not bad. But you have an all-pro kick returner on your roster, and he has not returned kicks this year because he doesn't feel like it. Like, I don't know. I know at the end of last year, Keyshawn Nixon was vocal about the fact he didn't want to return kicks anymore. He just wanted to focus on playing corner. But he hasn't done a particularly great job at playing corner, so I don't see why you don't just throw him back at kick returner and let him be good at what he's good at.
It'd be one thing if he was locking it down at corner, like, all right, like we'll give it to this guy. We're not gonna run him back there, but
like it's brutal knowing that he is a very talented kick returner. So I just don't understand why he's not doing it, but whatever. And then obviously the McManus situation is brutal. McManus is still a good kicker. I still have a lot of faith in the fact that he can make kicks. It just feels like he must have come back early. And Pittsburgh, I think, is
Yeah,
notoriously a tough place to kick, but I don't know. I was kind of wishing we had Lucas Haversick last night.
I know you did say that, but I think to your point, those Pittsburgh wins could have been in play, but I don't know. It also didn't look particular windy either, but maybe that was just deceiving. I don't know.
I know,
Um,
and that's the thing too. Like, look, the team played well enough to overcome those woes, right? They weren't the two missed kicks didn't end up being a huge problem. It's the difference between being 35-25 and 41-25, right? And this game is just out of reach way earlier. And he came back and rebounded and made some shorter kicks later and made all his extra points. But like, if this problem lingers past next week, then we need to have a serious conversation. This needs to be a one and done. Maybe he came back early, but now he's fully healthy and it was a weird weather situation, but he's good now. If this goes into next week, I'm not going to be as okay with this situation. Then the last point that I just wanted to touch on is when this offense clicks, you know, you could put the league on notice because we saw last night in the second half what this offense is capable of for the first time, honestly, since like weeks 1 and 2.
yeah,
And probably the most sustained success they've had consecutively in a game all year because they had a couple drives back to back in weeks 1 and week 2 or a quarter where they really turned it on, and then they hit lulls and they didn't finish, or vice versa, or they didn't turn it on until a certain point. Now they didn't turn it on really until the second half here, but they sustained it from the moment they got out there in the third quarter to the end. They kept the foot on the
yep,
gas. They didn't score touchdowns to put the Steelers away at the end, but it wasn't like they were just running out the clock. They were running the offense the exact same way that they were running it the whole game, which I love because you could have gave them a chance to get back into this and they didn't. So
yep.
I really liked that, and hopefully we can continue that momentum going forward. And then the one intangible thing that I'll throw in here before we move on to next week is this is the second week in a row that an opposing quarterback has said he had to use silent count at home.
That's crazy. I know you mentioned the Go Pack Go chants too at I don't even know what the stadium's called anymore. I was gonna say Heinz,
Acrisure.
but sure. But in Pittsburgh, it's pretty wild.
Yep. So I was very impressed in Arizona. Right, it's a long way from home for Packers fans. Even more impressed for a prime time, Sunday night football matchup in Pittsburgh at a place
Yeah.
that's usually packed with home fans. So, hats off again to the Packer fans traveling, who always travel well, but for being loud and having a presence. And it's even more special. You know what I mean when you're making the former quarterback of the Packers do a silent count at home because of Go Pack Go chants.
One thing I'll throw in real quick too, just watching that game. Shout out to the pass rush for the Packers too. Not only did the Packer traveling fans make it uncomfortable for Rodgers, but the front four were making it very uncomfortable for Rodgers. Sean Gary was in the backfield quite a bit. I think he had like 2 or 1.5 sacks at least. And we saw Micah Parsons kind of get in on the action, and they just had him kind of in that like middle linebacker, stacked behind the nose tackle, and then rushing on third down. And I mean, you just see his get off and just him being able to, if not get the sack, push the pocket, and then end up falling into another edge rusher's lap like Gary though on the one. So nice to see those guys get going. And I think overall, though, this team, I know you complain sometimes about them kind of playing down to some of their competition, or, excuse me, or like games like Arizona where they didn't blow you off the screen necessarily. But this team is built to play in prime time, and I think they love it. They feed off of that, and you know what? Just from my opinion, if you're, if you can show up in prime time when it matters, that's ultimately going to be very playoff atmosphere-esque. So good, definitely good that, obviously you want them to be lights out every single game. But if you had to handpick the games that, that they were looking their best, it's definitely going to be when the whole nation's watching you. So really cool to see the Packers kind of get back to those early week 1, week 2, level of dominance, especially against the, stick it to Aaron Rodgers.
You make a good point. Look, you're absolutely right. It sucks sometimes playing down to your competition, but if you play to the level of your competition, in theory, right, you're still going to win those games. And they absolutely have shined when the lights were the brightest this year. Week 1 against the Lions at home when you needed to set the tone for the year. Week 2 on Thursday Night Football against Washington, a team that was in the NFC Championship game last year. And then, Sunday Night Football against the Steelers. So you're absolutely right. They are a team that thrives evidently under pressure and when the lights are the brightest. So hopefully that bodes well for the coming weeks when we play Philly in a couple weeks on Monday Night Football, I believe. And then obviously when it comes playoff time. So hopefully that's a sign of good things to come.
But yeah, next week should get an easy. Well, I don't want it to say easy because you never know in this league. But I just saw what the Bills did to the Panthers, and I'm like, well, there's really no reason why the Packers can't do that either. So hopefully they could tack another one on.
1,000%. We're back home for the first time in a couple weeks, which is good. And I'm very much looking forward to that. And I don't really know who's going to quarterback for the Panthers. It sounds like Bryce Young had a positive day yesterday in workouts. So maybe
what did he
back.
hurt initially?
His foot, I think.
Okay.
Definitely lower body. Yeah, I want to say foot. Because it was like a running situation that he needed to, like some kind of test he needed to pass, and I guess he did well on it. So
interesting. Okay.
They said he's still uncertain. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently there's a chance he plays. I don't really know what I'd prefer. I mean, it's not like he's a world beater either, but I mean, Andy Dalton looked absolutely horrific yesterday. He looked like, he looked like what Bryce Young looked like coming out of college last year. Like overwhelmed, petrified, seeing ghosts, whatever word or phrase you want to use to describe it, it was him. I mean, making boneheaded plays that a guy who's been in this league for as long as he has should not be making. It was not pretty for the Panthers offense. So I would be more than happy if he's the quarterback on Sunday coming into Lambeau. But at the same time, like I said, Bryce Young has been playing better, but still not great. So I think this is hopefully a good opportunity for us to end this stretch that I've been saying we need to go 4-0 in. Let's end it with an ass whooping.
I was going to say you're off to a pretty good. Well, I mean, you're almost through this already at 3-0. So, that would be a very nice if that you could have predicted that 4-0 stretch. But I don't want to jinx anything either.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll leave it at hopeful for 4-0. I won't say anything more, definitive than that.
All right, so we will see what happens next week. I'm going to my first Giants game in a while. I didn't even talk about next week for the Giants, I just realized. But it's going to be the first one for, it feels like, almost a month, honestly. But we got a game against the Niners. Again, we're at this point in the season. We're 2-6. I just want to see a good game from Dart. I want to see him continue progressing in the right direction. And honestly, the Niners could be a winnable game. I mean, this is one in the beginning of the year where you're like, no way. But now with all the injuries that they had, I don't know. It's certainly, they have a chance. I'll say that. Who knows if Christian McCaffrey will just wreak havoc all over us, which I could clearly see that happening also. But who knows? Hopefully good weather. Hopefully we could enjoy the tailgate and all that other stuff, and then whatever happens after 1 o'clock happens. So that's it. With that being said, I think that will do it for this episode of Decleated. Thank you everyone for listening. Please turn on new episode notifications so you never miss a new episode of Decleated. And be sure to follow us on Instagram, X, TikTok at DecleatedPod. And you can watch videos of these podcasts on YouTube at Decleated Podcast.